So let me set the stage for you. 2,000 people in the ballroom at the Washington Hilton. That's where Ronald Reagan almost lost his life. I wrote a book, Killing Reagan. Some of you might have read it. It's about my fifth correspondence dinner. The first one I took Donald Trump. And that's where all of this stuff between Obama and Trump, where it happened. Okay? And so over the years, I know the drill. And I was never uneasy in that ballroom. And this year, I would not have gone, but my son said, please take me, because he's a political science major. Obviously, he wants to see what's going on. So we went and sat at the News Nation table. And for some reason, I was in the back of the ballroom. I think I was coming back from the men's room. And all of a sudden, I hear 4 shots, loud. So I'm in the back of the ballroom. There's a door that was open. And then there's an escalator that takes you up to the main floor of the hotel. So the ballroom's packed, as I said, 2,000 in there. So I'm standing there, I hear boom, 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 4. Everybody hits the ground except me and President Trump. We're the only guys. Now, my son is under the table. I just leaned under, I go, how is it under there? He goes, you're going to get shot in the head, Dad. And I said, look, if they haven't got me after 50 years, they're not going to get me. And then my son had the line of the evening, goes, I didn't know you were taking me to basic training. Because everybody knew that this was an assassination attempt, because the Secret Service, I would say 20, 30 seconds after the shots, stormed through the door where I was, ran down the aisle, and covered the president. So everybody knew that there were bad things afoot, as Sherlock Holmes once said. Now, as a normal human being, I should have hit the turf, but I had to see what was going on. It was my job. I have to see. So I'm there and I'm watching everything that's unfolding. And luckily for me, a marshal, a U.S. marshal, was at the door with a earpiece on, and he was a fan of mine, which always helps. So right after the Secret Service went in, I said to him, you know what's going on? And he briefed me. He said, there's a fracas upstairs. There were shots fired. What we know now, which I didn't know then, was that the shooter fired twice from a pistol, and Secret Service fired 2 or 3 shots. Very unusual, because if you shoot at a federal officer, which this guy did in the lobby of the hotel, you're usually dead within 5 seconds. So it was unusual. So I assume that because there was so many people, that the Secret Service is taking, measure. So they brought him to the ground quickly. You saw the picture of him laying on the ground, and then they had to decide what was going to happen next. President Trump didn't really want to leave because he doesn't like to show weakness of any kind. He doesn't want to be intimidated. This is the 3rd assassination on the man attempt. But they had to leave, and I understood. Everybody really understood that there was so much chaos swirling around. Now, after that, I then swung into my job, which is to get information. And we quickly established that this guy had taken a train from Chicago to D.C., checked into the hotel. He had a hotel room. There are 3,000, people who can be lodged in the Washington Hilton. 3,000. And then you had 2,000 visitors. That's 5,000 people, far too many. Far too many people. And, but you wouldn't know it coming in because there were stations everywhere. Here's the key point. the shooter could never have gotten even close to the president because he had to come down an escalator, which was manned, then go through a door where I was and the marshals, and then run down a long corridor, if you want to make it that way, but picture it in your mind, long space before he could get into any kind of shooting range. So that was never a problem. What was a problem was that people were close to the shooter. They were diving all over the place, as I said, normal people would do. The people close to the president, the dais, they didn't hear the shots. And I tell you, they were loud. I mean, I knew right away because I've heard gunfire in my life. And my son is an avid gun enthusiast. I mean, he hunts all the time. He knew what it was. We knew. And they were loud, as I said. But the people in the other half of the room had no idea what was taking place. When they saw all the federal protection run down, then they knew something was wrong. Okay. Now, this guy, Cole Allen, 31 years old, as I wrote on BillO'Reilly.com, it's just unbelievable. This guy will never, ever see freedom again, ever. In addition to destroying his own life, and he had no shot at this, pardon the pun, none. Okay? He destroys the life of his family. His family's got to deal with this their whole lives. So this guy's a loon, and then he writes up this crazy thing, a manifesto of why he's doing it, and it just makes no sense at all. The guy in the bushes in Palm Beach was a loon. The guy on the rooftop who got killed in Butler, Pennsylvania was a loon. They're all in the same category. They just don't have control over themselves. That's it. And throughout our history, these have been the profile of all the assassins, the presidential assassins, all of them, from John Wilkes Booth onward. They're just crazy, insane people. And that's what he is. But he'll never, ever get out. So he's been charged with trying to assassinate the president and other charges. But that's the big one. And Jeanine Pirro, who we have on our long form, she is part of the prosecution, but the Attorney General's Todd Blanche taking this over. Okay, then we have reaction. This is another fascinating story. So I'm there, and I'm giving information to News Nation through Kelly Myers, who's a very, very good correspondent. She's the top News Nation Washington correspondent. And I'm giving her what I have because I didn't want to hotshot it. Okay, let her. That's her beat. Let her do it. At the same time, CNN is misreporting what happened. Roll the tape.
All right, guys. I just want you to know this is not verified. We're just listening to what's happening right now. But we have security around us, and it's Secret Service because there's a lot of members of the administration here. The Secretary of Education is seated right next to me, and her security just said, confirmed that there was a shooter in the lobby. It's not clear where. Obviously, it's a very big hotel. In the lobby of the Hilton, they said he is confirmed dead. We don't know anything more than that.
But he wasn't dead. Okay? Now, I'm trying to be fair to Ms. Collins. She's a rookie. All right? She doesn't have the basics down. Just doesn't. Looks good on TV, can conduct an interview. She doesn't know what she's doing. You don't report a story like that. You don't. Because that's what they call hearsay. She's got no valid source for that story other than some Secretary of Education. How would he know? Now, if you want to mention it, you can say there's a rumor. You could say that. But you don't say they said he is confirmed dead. Maybe they said it, but so what? It's wrong. It's wrong. Are we understanding that? Then President Trump not wanting to show any weakness, because he never does, he goes on 60 Minutes. Roll it.
You read that crap from some sick person. I got associated with all stuff that has nothing to do with me. I was totally exonerated. Your friends on the other side of the plate are the ones that were involved with, let's say, Epstein or other things. But I said to myself, you know, I'll do this interview and they'll probably, I read the manifesto, you know, he's a sick person, but you should be ashamed of yourself reading that, because I'm not any of those things.
Yeah, O'Donnell had no cause to read the ramblings of a loon. None. Yet she tried to humiliate the President of the United States, who was just attacked. And it was edited. There isn't one person in CBS who knows that. That's called gutter snipe reporting. That's what the National Enquirer does. Oh, look who said this about you. It's not true. Then why are you throwing it out there? You can't do that if you're a responsible journalist. You have to verify it. So the president was absolutely 100% correct in saying to Miss O'Donnell, who I know, okay, you should be ashamed of yourself of reading that. And she should be, but she's not. I'm just doing my job. No, you're not. Talk about malpractice. My God. Okay, and now another controversy is emerging today. Jimmy Kimmel is in the middle of this. So on Thursday, April 23rd, Kimmel said this. Go.
And of course, our First Lady Melania is here. Look at Melania, so beautiful. Mrs. Trump, you have a glow like an expectant widow. You know, Melania's birthday is on Sunday. That's right. She's planning to celebrate at home, the same way she always does, looking out a window and whispering, "What have I done?"
All right, so the widow line is going to haunt Kimmel. Disney's got to get rid of him. Got to. So Melania Trump, very rare, issued a response today saying, quote, Kimmel's hateful and violent rhetoric is intended to divide our country. His monologue about my family is a comedy. His words are corrosive, deepens the political sickness within America. People like Kimmel shouldn't have the opportunity to enter our homes each evening to spread hate. A coward, Kimmel hides behind ABC because he knows the network will keep covering for him. Enough's enough. It is time for ABC to take a stand. How many times will ABC's leadership enable Kimmel's atrocious behavior at the expense of our community? Okay. Would I fire Kimmel if I were the head of ABC? Yes, I would. Yes, I would. It's not First Amendment issues. He's in it for the hate. Not a comedian any longer. So shortly after that, the president issued a social media quote, I appreciate so many people are incensed by Kimmel's despicable call to violence. Normally would not be responsive to anything that he said, but this is something far beyond a pale. Jimmy Kimmel should be immediately fired by Disney and ABC. Thank you for your attention. Okay, so I expect that to happen this week. Now, if Disney defies, then their affiliates will drop Kimmel. Okay, they have to. I mean, these are mistakes. Look, the Caitlin Collins mistake, she's a rookie. She doesn't know. The Norah O'Donnell, much more experienced, was to make Trump look bad. But this, Kimmel, this is just hate. And then there's Jamie Raskin, the congressman from Maryland, Democrat, one of the chief Trump haters on Capitol Hill. Here's what he said. Go.
I have no personal problem with Donald Trump at all. I mean, I talk about the policies of this administration, the authoritarianism like we saw on display in Minneapolis, where 2 of our citizens were gunned down in the streets simply for exercising their First Amendment rights. Renee Good, Alex Preddy, and others have died in custody. I'm talking about policies. I don't personalize it, and I certainly have never called the press the enemy of the people.
No, so he's loathsome, and he's trying to virtue signal that Renee Good and Alex Preddy were just gunned down. It's not that they disobeyed any kind of federal officer or they injected themselves into a very volatile situation. No, they were just gunned down. This is what this guy does, Raskin. That's who he is. That's what he does. He's not going to stop doing it. Now, political implications from this. The ballroom that the president wants to build will get a go-ahead. He's being sued by the National Trust for Historic Preservation about the project, which is all private money, and it will go forward, I predict, right here, because that's the solution. If you have your own ballroom on White House grounds, then you don't have these security problems. And then the Secret Service isn't getting paid 73 days because the Democrats are holding up funding for Homeland Security. So that's got to stop, obviously. There's a whole bunch of things swirling around this terrible incident that happened on Saturday night. And I expect them to be resolved in President Trump's favor. So summing up, once again, I'm on the scene of a big story. My God, my career is unbelievable. We want you to try to get into your mind that BillO'Reilly.com does have accurate reporting. And then if you want to know something, that is where you go first. Then you can backpedal into the other if you want, but I'm telling you, it has never been this bad. Journalism has never been this bad. And Disney is in major trouble with Kimmel. And that's the memo. Joining us now is Congressman Mike Lawler, who was at the dinner. He is a Republican from New York. All right, so what did you take away? Sorry for the cliche, but when you were thinking about the aftermath and your presence where you were, what did you take away from it, Congressman?
Well, my wife and I were in the middle of the room, and as you know, Bill, you can't move in that room once you're seated. And so it makes it a real challenge to, get up and get around. And so what we heard was a pop and then a bunch of plates and trays falling to the ground, and then the Secret Service flooding into the room to secure the president and ultimately get him, the vice president, the cabinet secretaries out of the room. And what we were left with was a lot of chaos and confusion because you didn't know if somebody was actually in the room or whether or not, there was an active threat. And as you pointed out, I mean, the reporting that was taking place from within the room was inaccurate in a lot of cases. And so it was hard to get the facts.
Okay, so how did your wife handle it? Was she panicked or how did she handle
it? She was unnerved. And so, obviously I was concerned about her in that moment. We also have 2 young kids. We have a 4-year-old and an 18-month-old. So your thoughts are on that, in that type of situation. But, as we got more information and clarity, obviously everybody was in a calmer state, but it's still unnerving, especially, when your spouse is there.
Sure. And you're not used to this kind of stuff unfolding right before your eyes. Do you see any political implications coming out of this?
Well, look, the Secret Service did a very good job on the perimeter of the ballroom, obviously stopping the individual in his tracks, and getting the president. But I do think there's a real problem with these types of large-scale events. There was no ID required to get in. There was no security really checking any list whatsoever to verify that somebody should be on the grounds. You had no magnetometers anywhere throughout the building except right outside the ballroom. And the fact that this gentleman was able to get from the 10th floor down a vacant stairwell to the ballroom area obviously is disconcerting. So I think number one, how security is handled at these large scale events needs to be reevaluated. And number two, to the point of the president, this is the third public attempt on his life. And I don't think people are taking it serious enough. I can tell you I'm very active in my district. I've done close to 2,000 events in person in district. I take my safety and security seriously because, frankly, people are unhinged today. And the fact that, in this type of setting with 3,000 people in a ballroom, that, somebody was able to get within vicinity after you've already had two separate attempts on the president's life, I think it speaks to where and how these events take place. And I do think it justifies what the president is trying to do on the White House grounds. You could never get into the White House with a loaded gun.
As I said,
that really is the
right.
point.
You can't vote against it now, and the judges will stop the nonsense and they'll okay it, particularly because it doesn't cost the taxpayer anything. Do you, in your career, have you seen a change on the psyche of the American people from when you started? Because there's always been, obviously, partisan hatred, always in this country, till now. Have you seen it get worse?
No question. Frankly, people don't even want to be in the room with people they disagree with. And it's sad. People seem to believe that political violence is the solution to political differences. And rather than engage in honest and robust debate and discussion and duke it out at the ballot box, they seem to believe the ends justify the means. And so I think it's a big problem that we are grappling with as a country. I think social media has been so destructive in our political discourse. People latch on to the quote unquote influencers who are frankly grifting and fueling the rage in this country rather than actually engaged in thoughtful and honest debate. And that's really driving so much of this vitriol and hatred that we see that is just, permeated our politics.
It's not just them, though. It's like, it's Raskin. You know Raskin,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, listen, some of my colleagues played to the worst of the American people. And listen, somebody like Eric Swalwell, you saw how fast he fell because he was an awful, awful person. And he, lied repeatedly. Raskin has lied repeatedly. It doesn't help the American people. It doesn't serve our country or our body politics well. And frankly, there's people in Congress that are not serious and they don't belong there.
All right. Congressman, we really appreciate it. I'm glad you and your wife, are putting this behind you because there is a residual to this kind of a thing. People might not know that, but it just doesn't go away. I can tell you that from personal experience. But we appreciate your time tonight. If we can ever be of service, let us know, Congressman. Thank you. So one of the people I'm referring to is Erica Kirk, who was up there near the dais anyway, and here's what she said. Go.
I just want to go.
Yeah, so husband Charlie Kirk, as everybody knows, assassinated, and you can imagine all those memories come flooding back. It's awful.